If you've worked in the professional cleaning and facility solutions industry for any length of time, you might have noticed that sustainability conversations feel different than they did a decade ago. What was once viewed primarily as an environmental initiative is increasingly connected to business. In today's discussion, we'll look beyond broad environmental goals and examine how manufacturers, distributors, cleaning contractors, residential service providers, and facility managers, no doubt you fit into one of those, can use sustainability to strengthen their businesses. And to do this, I'm pleased to welcome a good friend and colleague, Steve Ashkin, president of the Ashkin Group and co-chair of ISSA's Sustainability Committee. Our focus today is to dig into what we can expect at ISSA Show North America, specifically the sustainability focused content that I believe you have something to do with. Why don't you talk about that? What's coming up at the show that you feel is important, especially on the business side of things?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone listening in. If you don't mind, Jeff, let me begin by explaining what I think sustainability really is about. I own two companies. I've been involved with a number of startups. I've been doing this for my life. And, business is tough and it's challenging. And I'm a firm believer that people make the best decisions they can based on the information that they have. So the way I really think about sustainability is historically, we manage our operations, we manage our business based on historical data, right? We're going to look at P&Ls, we're going to look at financials, we're going to look at how we performed this month and this quarter compared to last year. We're going to look at budgets, we're going to look at forecasts, how do we did, et cetera, et cetera. So traditional financial management is really backwards looking. But from my experience, especially in a highly competitive marketplace, we need as much information as we can because success is really in the details. And what sustainability reporting does is it's future looking. It's the opportunity to really think about risks. It's the opportunity to think about our people and if something happens to them, or if we can look at retention rates and immigration policies and all these other kind of things. If we can look at environmental impacts, whether we're talking about extreme weather or we're talking about new regulations. If we're talking about potential impacts from new laws like EPR laws and sustainability reporting requirements in California. Knowing these things up front just helps us make better decisions. And that gives us a better chance to succeed. It's not about politics. It's not about hugging trees. It's not about, patting ourselves on the butt and feeling good about life. It really is about good business and making good decisions. So at this year's convention, I hope we really can settle in, think of this stuff from a business perspective, and we're going to share a whole bunch of tools and opportunities that I think will really help companies succeed.
One thing you do is you encourage companies to think sustainably before making an important business decision. How do they actually do that? Dig into this a bit. And do you have any examples in terms of cost, efficiency, customer care, risk, items like that?
Well, the real issue we're trying to make is, we got to stop just doing what we always did. And I know we're all busy and we all have our comfort zones and, this is how we answer questions or how we deal with our staff or what have you. What think sustainably simply means is we want to emphasize thinking, right? We want to emphasize that when we're making decisions, to consider our options, to consider if there's opportunities to drive efficiencies, to consider who our suppliers are, and if perhaps there are better alternatives, to think about our products. I often just think about this stuff as the process of continual improvement. How do we just keep getting better? So to me, it really is, let's think about this stuff. Let's think large scale. Let's think about the future. Where do we want to be in 6 months and 6 years? We need to think about how technology is changing and how that can affect our business. We got to stop just reacting. We got to stop just waiting till our customers tell us to do something or ask us to do something or to get the next RFP where we're going to be forced to do something or the next law. Let's lead. Let's really think about the future. As Buckminster Fuller once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And I think thinking sustainably and the tools that we're building will help companies succeed. So that's how I want to think about it. And I hope others will think the same way.
So, Steve, thinking about customers that we serve, maybe cleaning, providing products in any way, they're requesting information, sustainability information from our industry. Where would you say cleaning industry companies struggle most with those requests? And talk about reporting practices that organizations should begin putting into place now, because that probably will help with that question.
Well, the first issue is I think there's a real difference between large ISSA members, multi-billion dollar publicly traded international corporations. Come on, these guys are players. They know what this information is. They have whole staffs and high paid consultants, and they have the expertise to deal with this stuff. They publish sustainability reports that are well thought out and vetted with lots of good data that they have validated by third party, outside, independent organizations. The large players, they got it. The challenge then becomes for small and medium sized companies. Now, how do you compete with that? And one of the things that really concerns me is far too many companies are waiting for the last minute to get a request from a customer, and they don't really understand the complexity of getting all the data that they need. So the challenge is, at least from my personal perspective, is I worry that far too many outstanding companies, especially entrepreneurial startup companies, the person really trying to live the dream, to start their business, to really care for their family, to do something exceptional. Well, I'm worried that these sustainability reporting requirements from major customers unfortunately could become a barrier to their success simply because they're not prepared. So, what we're really trying to do is make sure these small and medium sized companies have the tools that the big guys have, but at a price that they can afford. Because that's the reality in our industry. And I think it's going to happen more and more frequently. Just want to remind everyone that there are two laws. They're not just sort of things in the state house and what have you. These are laws that have been signed by the governor of California that require large companies that are based in California or that do business in California have to start in 2027, including information from their suppliers, what we call Scope 3 reporting. And I really do worry that a lot of companies are just unprepared for this. So, this really does come down to business, how we can help them. And again, my heart is really in a place where I want to help these small and medium sized companies because that's where I came from. And frankly, that's the future.
So, really, the key is don't wait to be asked the question or the request, but to get in front of it, no matter the size of your company, small and medium, maybe even more so important to do right now, and be ready and maybe offer that before the question's asked.
Absolutely, right? Come on.
Mhm.
It's just like if you're doing any kind of project, you got to be prepared. You,
Yeah,
you
well,
know,
reality is not everyone is. So there you go. It's just, but maybe this conversation will help with that, being prepared and getting in front of it. But Steve, I want to pivot a little to something that you plan to discuss at the show. I know it's a project you're working on a lot, extreme weather preparedness, and how that's becoming an important part of sustainability and business continuity. Talk about the new extreme weather events handbook and that companion AI agent and how that's going to help with part of today's discussion, part of the challenge that companies have with making better decisions and being ready?
Well, there's two parts to this. One is the most important part of sustainability is staying in business and protecting our people. And we know for a fact that extreme weather is happening. I can't predict what the weather is going to be like next week or next year or next month or frankly in 15 minutes, right? Things happen. But what we can do is be prepared because we know stuff's going to happen, whether it's wildfires and smoke related issues out on the West Coast and droughts, or if it's hurricanes and tornadoes in the Southeast or flooding through the Midwest. This stuff is going to happen. And the real question is, are we prepared? So what we did is we put together a group of climatologists and industry experts and restoration people. And Jeff, thank you for your contribution. We put together the right folks, insurance companies, to really help us develop a handbook specific to our industry. The handbook's now 120 pages long, has all kinds of great information in it and forms how to deal with your insurance company, how to prepare, how to deal with your customers, how to take care of your people, what really to think about from a risk perspective, all these cool things. But here's the thing, you know, these kind of documents, they exist all over the place. They really do. Insurance companies have them. Lots of people have them. It's not like we created, the wheel, right? We didn't do that. But what we really are trying to do is two things. One is to make it very specific to people in our industry, right? I mean, what do you do if there's a flood and you're a distribution company and your drivers are sort of stranded because of a flash flood? Do we have information to tell them what to do? If we're a service provider and we have people working in a customer's office building or manufacturing site or in customers' homes, do they know what to do? Do we provide them with information so they can actually help their families, in the event that something happens? Because if something happens to their family, our workers are probably going to take care of their family and may not show up to work. So, how do we really think about and prepare for all these things? But the other thing that we did that's really interesting is because this information exists, we wanted to make it really accessible. That's the secret sauce that we're building. So one of the cool things we did is we took that 120-page handbook and we built an AI agent. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, I'm going to pretend that actually this picture of Jeff Cross you see, that's not really Jeff. That's an AI agent. Just pretend for a minute. And the reason I'm saying that is these AI agents really look like people, and you really can have conversations with them. And you can just say, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, where Jeff is, and tell me what I need to do to protect my distribution or my service business. And it literally will say, well, here are the three things specific to Columbus, Ohio for your type of business. And we really want to make it easy because nobody wants to read a 120-page document cover to cover. No one has time for that. There's a lot of information that's not important to them. And, if you're an entrepreneur, man, you're probably just trying to put out fires and make payroll this week. So we really wanted to use this AI agent to make it as absolutely easy for people to get exactly what they want. And frankly, it is really cool. And I hope those of you listening will come and check out what we're doing because this AI stuff, this is the future. And it's not just, like a bigger Google search engine, but to really be able to answer questions and to really be helpful to people based on the information that we can control.
Thank you, Steve. And I am not the AI agent in that
Oh.
project, so everyone knows. That AI agent is a lot smarter. So, but it's really cool. I've kicked the tires and tested it out, and a great project, Steve. congratulations to you and everyone who's worked on it.
I also want to say that I'm really proud of ISSA for being willing to show some leadership on this. You know, next year, this AI stuff will be entirely different from right now. Next year, there'll probably be 20 companies at the convention that actually have AI agents. And I don't just mean autonomous floor scrubbers and stuff like that, but actually real AI stuff. And so I appreciate ISSA taking some leadership because the only way you really learn about something is by doing it. So anyway, my hat's off and my bald head hat off to ISSA for its willingness to move on this program and to everyone on ISSA Sustainability Committee that's been helping us work on this. But the other cool thing, if you don't mind me saying, Jeff, one of the things that I'm really excited about at the convention is that ISSA has brought in a couple of amazing speakers that are incredibly knowledgeable about sustainability. And please know, frankly, I think I'm pretty good at this stuff. I've been seriously working on it for the past 15 years. And that doesn't include all the green cleaning stuff I've done through my career. But we're bringing in Kevin Dooley, who is a professor at Arizona State University. But more importantly, Kevin led Walmart's Sustainability Consortium. This guy's brilliant. He helped build what we think of sustainability as it applies to product related stuff. This is the guy that built it. I mean, we are honored to have such expertise coming in. And then the other is ISSA is also bringing in David Gottfried. And David is the founder of the U.S. Green Building Council. And I think many listeners, you understand the impact that LEED has had on our industry and frankly, around the globe, right? Hundreds of thousands of buildings use the LEED rating system. So David's coming in. He's going to actually do a book signing for us. David is amazing. He's not just a speaker and an author. He's the guy who actually did it. If you want to learn how you really can bring massive change from someone who actually did it, who's inspiring and charismatic, I hope you'll come by Monday. David's the keynote speaker for the educational day and actually hear him. And ISSA's bought a whole bunch of books. So the first 500 people will get copies of David's new book. And I think David's brilliant, and I hope people will come and meet him.
I'm sure they will, Steve, and I'll be there to get my book. I'll see you at the show.